All right, so this is Rand and Objectivism, Part 3. We were left off talking about this idea that a rational choice is a selfish choice. An irrational choice is a sacrificial one. That sacrifice is the virtue, or selfishness, rather, is the virtue, and that sacrifice is what has destroyed you. Now, we looked at the example here, and I gave you this quote whereby she was directly attacking Bentham's philosophy, kind of pointing out that in his case, if you say that I'm going to put the needs of the many over the needs of the one, particularly if that one is myself, then you are acting wrongly. But we have to remember, too, that each person has their own hierarchy, and we can't always tell when a person is acting sacrificially or when a person is acting through selfishness. Take a figure like Mother Teresa, for example. We see Mother Teresa as being one of the most self-sacrificing people that ever lived. She gave up everything. She lived in abject poverty to try to provide and help and benefit the poor people of India. But yet, why did she do it? It wasn't just because she was a nun. There was a lot of nuns living much more comfortable lives than she ever did. So why did she do it? Well, maybe there was a feeling, a sensation, an inner glow, a joy, a happiness that came from doing those things. If within her hierarchy, that inner feeling and sensation ranks higher than any type of other action, than material wealth or value, then her action is a selfish action. It could be seen, and of course we don't know this for sure because we couldn't see inside her mind, we couldn't see that hierarchy. But perhaps it's the case that Mother Teresa's actions were actually selfish actions, even though the rest of the world saw her as one of the most self-sacrificing people ever. Maybe the choice was a rational and therefore a moral decision because it was selfish. She wanted that inner glow. She wanted that feeling of happiness that came from doing those things. And so she gave up what was of lesser value to her in exchange for what was of greater value to her. And so what looked like a sacrifice on the surface was actually a selfish decision. And so that's the thing. We can't look inside of other people's minds. We can't see their hierarchy. That makes it difficult for us to be able to determine whether an action really is selfish or not. But Rand says that to be a moral agent, we essentially have to put ourselves first. We have to, put ego ahead of anything else, because selfishness is the true virtue, and it's what's going to lead to happiness. Now, some people, when they hear about this philosophy, which is really very simple, I should do whatever is going to bring me happiness, provided I don't deliberately harm somebody else in the process. That's really what all of this boils down to. But some people say, isn't it going to be a cruel and heartless world if everybody is simply out for themselves, if everybody is simply acting through selfishness? And Rand says no, it's not. It's going to make a better world. And here's why. First, there are individuals who will sometimes talk about charity and goodwill with one hand while they're robbing you blind with the other. If everyone is acting through egoist ethics, then we would always know where we stand with everyone. There's no opportunity for people to take advantage of others, nor should there be a desire for anyone to do so. It would simply be a case of I am acting in my best interest, you are acting in your best interest, and we all know this. So we all know where we stand, and there's no more deception in that way. It also would imply not only would we have a greater sense of honesty, but we actually would find a greater sense of happiness, because each person would take it upon themselves. They would stop waiting for things to be handed to them, and instead they would simply start acting on their own behalf and realizing that what happens is their own fate, not anyone else's. Oops, wrong direction. Wrong direction. Okay, there we go. So we come to this question of charity. And the question is raised, do you ever ask if it's proper to help another man? And Rand's response, no, if he claims it as his right or as a moral duty that you owe him. But yes, if such is your own desire based on your own selfish pleasure in the value of his person and of his struggle. In other words, if somebody says you need to help out this bum on the street because you've got something and he doesn't, if they're simply trying to guilt trip you into it, then that is wrong, and you should not under any circumstances be forced to feel guilty about that. You've worked for what you have. You have achieved on your own. Why should some bum on the street be allowed to sit by and simply wait for you to give handouts of what you've worked so hard for? But on the other hand, kind of like the Mother Teresa example, if you're doing it because it makes you feel good, maybe you realize that although there's an awful lot of con artists out there who are trying to milk the system, that there are some people who are genuinely in need, and when you help those people, it brings you a sense of joy and happiness. If that's the reason why you're doing it, then it's perfectly fine. And so Rand is saying here that there is nothing wrong with charity in and of itself, but the motivation for the charity has to be right. Don't do it because you feel obligated. Don't do it because somebody has guilt-tripped you into it. If you do, that's not going to benefit you, and it's not even going to benefit the other person. But if you do it because it makes you feel good, if it brings you happiness, which is the ultimate goal, then of course it has merit, it has value then. Right? So there's nothing wrong with charity as long as you're doing it because it makes you feel happy and it brings you joy. But if you're doing it for any other reason, then it would be morally wrong to act in terms of charity. When we get to the very end of John Galt's big speech, he ends with these lines, "I swear by my life and my love of it, that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine." And at that point, the radio goes silent and everybody's left to think about these things. But Rand considered this to be a summation, not just of her ethics, but of her whole philosophy. "I swear by my life and my love of it, that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine." In other words, I am here to pursue my own happiness, my own pleasure. I am not going to use and abuse somebody else in the pursuit of that pleasure, nor am I going to allow anyone else to use and abuse me in the pursuit of their pleasure. And that's really what the philosophy itself, this ethics, is all about. You know, in another writing, Rand says that what makes this country, the United States, so great is the fact that this is where the phrase "to make money" originated. In other countries, you look back through history, money was a stagnant thing. It sat in the same families, it was the same land masses, it didn't move around hardly at all. But in this country, people had the opportunity to come here with a dream, with a vision, with the willingness to work hard, and they could achieve anything that they desired. You look at somebody like Abraham Lincoln, born to obscurity and poverty, rises to be President of the United States. Andrew Carnegie, born in Scotland, where money is very stagnant and unchanging, born to poverty, but he had a genius about him. He had a dream, he had a vision. He came to this country, he pushed it forward, he worked hard with it, and what was the end result? He died one of the richest men on the planet. the laissez-faire capitalism that existed, particularly in the early years of this country, allowed the opportunity for people who had a dream and a vision and a willingness to make it happen to achieve their dreams. It gave them the opportunity to decide, this is what I want, to go after it, to make it happen, and thereby to find that happiness that we all seek. But if you look at a communistic country, if you look at a country where money is stagnant, if you look even at a country like ours is becoming, where the government is interfering more and more and more into the world of business, you find that those opportunities are not there as much anymore. And therefore people are being regulated far too much. What we need, according to Rand, is to get back to that system of pure laissez-faire capitalism. That's what she wants to see happen in the novel. That's what she wants to see happen in real life. Because it's that system that gives us the opportunity to achieve our dreams and to find that happiness that we all seek. And again, that's what ethics is about for most people. Creating a world that's conducive to happiness. You can't have happiness in a world, or at least not much, in a world where you're constantly being dictated to. Happiness is going to come by being able to make your own plans, see them to fruition, right? Achieve your dreams. That's where the happiness comes from. Rand's philosophy is one that's incredibly controversial. There are people that love it, and they hear about this and they want to start practicing it immediately. Best system ever. There are other people who absolutely despise it. They think that it's evil and that she's Satan incarnate. And you'll have to make up your own mind where you fit with regards to that. But one thing I will say in closing is that Rand would have loved that division. Because she said at one point that one side is right, the other side is wrong. But the middle is always evil. And I think there's a great truth to that. You look at politicians. What do so many of them try to do? They try to scoot towards the middle. They try to be centrist. They try to straddle the fence and not really take a position on either side. And what do? They upset everybody. So why not take a stand? Stand for something. You're either going to be right or you're going to be wrong, but stand for something. Don't be a fence sitter. And so I think that the fact that there really are no fence sitters with Rand, that people either love her or they hate her, is something that she really, really would have loved. But anyway, that's in a nutshell Rand's philosophy of egoist or objectivist ethics.